ecologic and mutualistic relationship. That's here. We are under construction. Thank you. Do you have any questions? So the discuss the questions, then I'd like you to think about it. And we have time to discuss later.
Namaste everyone. So I'm going to be speaking to you today about, again, sustainable urban design, but with a focus on designing for people, for you and for me and for all the citizens of our respective cities. And the case that I'm trying to make is that this will help to be the key for an improved quality of life. And that is the key word that's going around in the world today, that we are all looking to improve our quality of lives for our respective cities. As I said earlier, I come from New Delhi in India, and how we advertise ourselves to the world, what is our catchphrase as the word goes, is Dildar Delhi. And Dildar means magnanimous Delhi, that means with a big heart. And if we look at how the main central space of Delhi, this is India Gate, which was the war memorial built during the colonial times. And this is what is the most famous portrayed image of the city. However, air pollution exceeds limits 95% of the year. And very often, especially in the winters at this time, this is the kind of view of the same India Gate where you can barely see anything. And unfortunately, this is something that's becoming a recurring scene in cities around the world. So just to paint a little bit of a profile of how the city looks, and making this as a case for an extreme version of a global south city. If you have heard the definition of a global north and a global south, the global north tends to denote the more developed northern part of the globe, whereas the global south, which covers more of Africa, South America, Southern Asia, etc., denotes a more developing and emerging populations, similar kind of countries. And India and New Delhi present an extreme case of that, with a very high growth rate, a very high population rate. So we can look at it as a probable global south future. In terms of area, we are the largest city in India and the third largest urban area globally. The largest, of course, is Tokyo. We have a population of, in the city, 16.3 million and 25 million in the urban agglomeration. However, if we compare now, since you all would have a context of Tokyo, if we compare the areas of Tokyo and the population of Tokyo to that of Delhi, we see a similar population in the urban area, but the area of Delhi is only about 1/3 to a quarter that of Tokyo. And what that means is that the density of the city is extremely high. The number of people per square kilometer in Delhi ranges from 25,000 to 30,000 people per square kilometer. In Tokyo, on the other hand, depending on where you are looking, it ranges from 6,000 to 10,000. That's almost 1/3. And you know how many people are there in Tokyo. So imagine all those people compressed into 1/3 that size. That is what we are seeing. India got its independence in 1947, when the urban spread of Delhi looked like that. And as you see, over time, we have spread to a huge, huge, huge area. Now, with this context, if I ask you, how do we commute? And I show you this picture, you would say that everybody in Delhi has a car. That we all drive a car, and that is why our city looks like this. And if I asked a child or a person from another country or even an alien that this is the city I have and this is how it looks, what do I change? That person would answer, you need to look for space efficiency. That means we take lesser space to move. You need to look for energy efficiency, because cars, as we saw in the earlier picture, are taking a huge amount of energy to move one or two people. And we need to look at reduced emissions so that we don't have pollution like we saw in the beginning. But if I tell you that in Delhi, this is the commuting pattern, that although you saw that image where there were only cars, we have actually 35% of the trips made by walking only. And in spite of that 35%, we are seeing that scenario. We see cars coming in at only 9%. That's hardly any of the population. Only 9% of the trips are being made by that mode. But just that 9% of that 25 million gives us something that looks like that. So, I showed you this image before. What do we need to actually change then? We need to, other than thinking of these three, which we are already doing because a majority of the people are walking or taking a bicycle or taking a bus, we need to start looking at designing for people, which means that we need to start taking space away from the machine and creating space for people. This is a very common image in transportation planning that is shown. The same 60 people, if I have them move by car, that is the amount of space that is used, which was somewhat like Delhi. Delhi is a little bit worse. By buses, you still use this much space, and by cycles, only this much. So, although I made the argument that we are still already, moving by sustainable means, we need to create a pull effort towards this side. We need to start having lesser emissions, start being more space efficient. If we look around the world, good cities, create space for people. And this is happening everywhere. Japan is an excellent example where that is happening. There's no better place than sitting over here and seeing how it happens. But just to present some other few examples, New York City in the United States has taken away space from cars, created more space for people. Gangtok, a very, very small city in the northeastern part of India, has taken away vehicles from its main street and created space for people. We need to start thinking about disincentivizing this mode of transport. Across time, over the last 50 years or so, when we have started thinking about this, we see in Istanbul, Turkey, it has been transformed by pedestrianization. In Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, transformed by bicycles. In the 1950s, they were building huge roads through the city, huge infrastructure and flyover going, but at the same time, today, slowly they have changed the way they commute and gone to a more bicycle-oriented culture. In Guangzhou in China, we saw that before they implemented their BRT system, and today this is it, where we have taken so much of space away from the car, compressed the space for them, moved people onto more space-efficient means, and created space for people. And also, not thinking only about transportation, because again, at the key, as we talked about earlier, it is about designing for people. We take away space from the automobile again. This was over a river going through the center of Seoul in South Korea, and that has been ripped away, and they have opened up the river again, purified it, made it the center of the entire city. So one, we talked about moving people away from the usual conventional means. On the other hand, how do we make them move instead? The image I showed you of Delhi looked kind of like this, with the car everywhere and not much space for the rest. We have to start thinking about multimodality, where we are able to move with ease by whichever mode is convenient for you. And it may be different for you today and different for you tomorrow, depending on where you are going, depending on the time you are going, depending on how much luggage you are carrying.